October 27, 2025, 6:07 a.m. As a dense morning fog locked visibility across the Donetsk steppe to less than 984 feet, a Russian armored column moved toward the T-0504 route leading into Shakhtarsk. 30 armored vehicles pushed forward through the haze, crews unable to see more than a few dozen meters ahead, believing they were advancing under the cover of a perfect natural screen. What they didn't know was that every meter they traveled had already placed them inside a fire control matrix designed specifically for this location. The moment they left their staging area, the entire formation had been absorbed into Ukraine's reconnaissance web, and there was no way out. From 591 to 722 feet above the western sky, the 93rd Kholodny Yar Brigade's aerial surveillance grid was running continuously, tracking infrared signatures and heat trails across the cold terrain. LEA-100 reconnaissance UAVs scanned from high altitude, while Mavic 3T drones patrolled the mid-layer, operating silently past the arc of Russian radar detection. Both platforms maintained strict radio discipline, transmitting only compressed packets of targeting data every 23 to 27 seconds, enough to keep command posts updated without exposing their position to electronic warfare interception. What the Russian crews couldn't see through the fog was that they had just driven beyond the protective envelope of their own electronic warfare systems located near Novotroitska. This meant they were entering the open with no jamming cover, no radar support, and no electronic interference to mask their signatures. They were fully exposed. Russia's goal was clear. Their general staff was attempting to establish a new mechanized launch point capable of pressuring the entire western Donetsk defensive line. To achieve this, they committed a sizable force, 8 T-72B3 and T-80 BVM tanks forming the breakthrough element, 10 BMP-2 and BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles carrying mechanized infantry, 5 MT-LBs transporting ammunition and anti-tank teams, 2 UR-77 mine-clearing vehicles, and a series of Ural and Kam-AZ trucks hauling fuel, artillery rounds, and communications equipment. In total, between 150 and 180 soldiers moved with enough supplies for Russian planners to believe they could break through any Ukrainian defensive outpost along the southwestern axis toward Kostiantynivka. But the terrain they were driving into was one of the worst locations they could have chosen. An exposed corridor between abandoned coal pits, with no viable cover, no forward observation positions, and only narrow lateral movement space. Fog or not, this stretch of land was a natural kill alley. Sightlines dropped to around 164 feet. Any stalled vehicle would block those behind it. Any ambushed cluster would be trapped in seconds, and Ukraine had calibrated its defenses specifically for this approach route. Along the sparse tree line to the south, small Ukrainian anti-tank teams equipped with Stugna P guided missiles were already in position. Each team consisted of 2 to 3 operators, their launchers pre-mounted on concealed fixed platforms covered with grass netting and soil mounds. Around those positions, rows of FPV drone launch pits were hidden within abandoned trenches and foxholes, the entire network camouflaged with anti-reconnaissance netting. Farther to the rear, 155mm artillery batteries had pre-registered every potential Russian withdrawal lane, from the edges of the fields to the narrow corridor between shallow ridgelines, allowing them to fire instantly without adjustment. All these layers formed an interlocking kill web, waiting only for the Russian column to commit itself. Inside a forward command bunker located 7.44 miles west of the ambush zone, UAV coordinators from the 93rd Brigade monitored every movement through a low-latency video feed stitched from LEA-100 and Mavic 3T sensors. At exactly 6:25 a.m., reconnaissance data confirmed that the Russian convoy was approaching the kill zone, maintaining a steady 15.5 miles per hour speed with vehicle clusters spaced roughly 1,312 to 1,640 feet apart. Only 1,800 meters separated them from the point of no return. Less than 10 seconds later, the fire authorization code was transmitted. Every connected drone and firing system shifted into combat mode. FPV strike drones activated their motors. Command links switched to operational bandwidth. Launch pits opened. Mavic 3T recon drones tightened target tracking. The entire grid synchronized for attack. At 6:32 a.m., when the Russian convoy had closed to under half a mile from the kill zone, operators observed a sudden shift in the formation. Instead of staying on the main dirt track, an obvious channel pre-registered for artillery fire, the Russians split across 3 parallel farm lanes. In theory, dispersing vehicles reduces vulnerability to concentrated fires, but in this terrain, it only fractured the formation into 3 separated prongs. No line of sight, no mutual support, no ability to share fire control. What had been a single mechanized column turned into isolated clusters. Then, an anomaly appeared on the drone operator's screen. A Li-100 drone feeding targeting telemetry suddenly registered sharp interference on the 2.4 GHz band. Within 3 seconds, electronic warfare diagnostic tools pinpointed the source, a R330 Zytel-type small EW unit, specifically a Kasuta 4 system mounted on an MTLB chassis, activating full-spectrum suppression. If allowed to continue, it could degrade or disrupt entire portions of the drone network, driving FPVs off course or dropping them completely. Instantly, all Ukrainian drone platforms switched to counter-jam mode. Recon UAVs initiated FHSS, frequency hopping hundreds of times per second across multiple encrypted channels. FPV strike drones transitioned to inertial control using onboard gyroscopes and accelerometers to maintain precise heading without any external signals. The master control stream shifted to L-band, which the Kasuta system was far less capable of disturbing. To counter GPS spoofing, each drone compared the inertial trajectory to GPS input, severing the GPS link if deviation exceeded 1.5% and switching to full inertial navigation. The result was immediate. Not a single drone drifted off target. With the jamming source identified and still emitting, artillery received updated coordinates. FPVs locked onto new priorities. Stugna P teams are prepared to engage. The Kasuta system's electronic signature, intended to protect the Russian formation, had instead made the MTLB the most visible target on the field. The first FPV dove straight into the MTLB carrying the EW suite. 14 seconds later, its HEAT warhead penetrated the antenna compartment and engine bay, obliterating the crew and incinerating the equipment. Jamming signals disappeared instantly. A column of smoke rose from the wreckage. Only at that moment did Russian crews begin to understand that they were ambushed, but by then the entire convoy was already locked inside a 3-axis kill zone. Some tank crews attempted to swing their turrets, firing 125mm rounds blindly into fog-covered fields and tree lines. BMP drivers tried reversing but collided with vehicles behind them. Others became stuck in shallow ruts formed by old tires or the wet soil. Seconds later, the second wave of FPVs closed in. The lead T-72B3M of the northern prong tried pivoting, but in the limited space couldn't complete the maneuver. An approaching FPV dropped to around 7.5 feet above ground, angled at 28 degrees, and struck the narrow joint between the hull and turret ring. The internal ammunition detonated instantly. The turret launched upward. The crew compartment flash ignited. The vehicle responsible for passing orders forward was gone, and with it, the formation's ability to coordinate. A Ural truck carrying 122mm shells attempted to escape along a side track. A second FPV intercepted it head-on. The drone struck the center of the cargo bed. The explosion triggered sympathetic detonations of dozens of shells. Flames arced across the field. Shrapnel tore into a nearby BMP, crippling its steering and blocking the lane. From the western flank, another FPV targeted an MTLB stuck in soft ground. Its warhead penetrated the left armor plate, destroying the engine and command bay. The hull split into 2 major fragments. Infantry assigned to that section lost their transport. A BMP-2 tried reversing under threat of overhead drones but collided with a trailing vehicle. The next FP-5 dove through the roof armor, one of the thinnest protection zones. The vehicle ignited internally. Rear hatches burst outward. No survivors escaped. Further east, a T-80BVM equipped with a tall communication mast attempted to relay updates, but a 5th FPV struck the right side of its command bay. The antenna collapsed. Internal radios burned out. All remaining crew coordination collapsed. The UR-77 mine-clearing vehicle tried deploying its line charge to carve an escape corridor. A 6th FPV dove from 33 feet and impacted the explosives container. The blast ignited the charge backward, creating a rocket-like reverse detonation that engulfed the vehicle. Flames shot across the field, eliminating Russia's only engineering escape option. In minutes, Russia's mobility assets were gone. The mechanized formation fractured. 4 BMPs and MTLBs became trapped in mud along the northern track. 2 T-80 BVMs, a BMP, and a Ural truck tried cutting westward across farm lanes to rejoin their original axis, but Ukrainian surveillance identified their every movement. Dismounted infantry scattered towards small rises in the southeast, but were isolated and unsupported. Escape was no longer possible. From the tree line, Stugna P teams were positioned in an L-shaped firing geometry, spaced around 656 feet apart, allowing them to fire crosswise into clustered vehicles from different angles. At long range, 5 to 6 miles out, 777 155mm howitzers fired fan-shaped 3-round salvos into likely exfiltration points along the northern and northeastern edges. Instead of brute force barrages, Ukraine applied precision pressure, locking each Russian subgroup into place before eliminating it. Within 5 minutes, the entire Russian mechanized thrust froze in open ground. Overhead, LEA-100 UAVs recorded every explosion and every failed maneuver. According to aggregated data, 15 out of 30 vehicles were completely destroyed. Another 8 were abandoned, burned out, immobilized, or stuck deep enough to be unusable. The rest never escaped the kill area. More than 45 Russian soldiers were taken out of the fight, most within a 656-foot radius of the ambush impact zone. Not a single Ukrainian infantryman exposed his position. Not a single rifle round was fired. All effects, destruction, immobilization, suppression, were achieved through UAVs, anti-tank guided missiles, and artillery working in synchronized layers beyond Russia's reach. The field southwest of Kostiantynivka transformed into a 500-meter kill belt with tank hulls ripped open, turrets thrown hundreds of feet away, and the ground cratered from near-range artillery strikes. Black smoke hung over the site for hours. The immediate result was decisive. Russia halted its advance. The 93rd Brigade reinforced positions. The T-0504 route between Shakhtarsk and Pokrovsk, Russia's intended armored corridor, was closed completely. The offensive stalled for over 48 hours. Artillery and logistics units were forced to reroute more than 31 miles east, delaying supplies across the southern axis. The blow to Russia's mechanized coherence forced the 8th Combined Arms Army to pause operations entirely. Reinforcements from Horlivka shifted to a defensive posture, holding the Kostiantynivka-Druskivka line, confirmed by ISW, became the structural pillar of Ukraine's eastern defense. The engagement demonstrated the modern battlefield's new reality. Infantry is no longer the primary shock element. They are the final layer in a 3-tiered kill web driven by information speed, layered fires, and precision effects. When the Russian convoy entered the kill zone that foggy morning, it carried the objective of opening a steel corridor. When it left, only blackened wrecks remained.